Lincoln High looked like any other school. Red brick, big windows, a tired old yard, but something felt wrong, something felt cold. A chill ran down my spine as I walked through the front doors. My name is Max. I had just moved to this town. My family and I had left the city behind. We wanted a fresh start, but something told me this wasn't the fresh start I was hoping for. The halls were bustling with students. They all seemed to know where they were going. I felt lost and alone. A shiver ran down my spine again. I hoped it was just the cold. My first few days at Lincoln High were rough. I was the new kid. No one talked to me. I ate lunch alone. I felt invisible. One day, as I was stuffing books into my locker, I heard a voice. "New here," it said. I slammed my locker shut. Standing there was a girl with bright blue hair. "I'm Sarah," she said. "Don't worry, it's like this for everyone at first." Her voice was friendly. Maybe I wouldn't be alone after all. Sarah showed me around Lincoln High. She introduced me to some of her friends. Things were starting to look up. But there was still something strange about the place. I started to notice things, shadows moving in the corners of my eyes, whispers in the empty hallways, books falling off shelves for no reason. I told Sarah about it. She just laughed. "That's just Lincoln High for you," she said. "It's an old building, bound to have a few creaks and groans, but I knew it was more than that." One afternoon I stayed late after school. I had detention. Mr. Harris, the history teacher, was a real stickler for the rules. He droned on about the American Revolution. Suddenly the lights flickered. The room went cold. Mr. Harris shivered. "Must be the storm," he muttered. But there was no storm. As I sat there, I heard a scratching sound. It was coming from the chalkboard. Slowly, words began to appear. "Help me," they read. I was terrified. The next day, I told Sarah about the message on the chalkboard. She finally believed me. "There's a legend," she said. "They say Lincoln High is haunted by the ghost of a student who disappeared years ago." We decided to investigate. We went to the library. The librarian, a stern woman with a bun so tight it looked like it could choke a horse, pointed us to the archives. We spent hours searching through old yearbooks and newspapers. Finally, we found an article about a student named Billy Johnson. He had vanished without a trace in 1954. We showed the article to the school janitor, a creepy old man named Mr. Wilkins. He had been at Lincoln High for decades. He looked at the article and his face turned white. "You shouldn't be messing with things you don't understand," he croaked. "Billy Johnson's spirit is trapped here. He's angry and he's looking for revenge." We didn't listen. We were determined to help Billy. We thought maybe we could find out what happened to him. Maybe we could help him find peace. We discovered that Billy had been a student in Mr. Harris's history class. We also found out that the principal at the time, Mr. Davies, had been involved in some shady business. We went to Mr. Harris's classroom. The chalkboard was still there. We touched it. Suddenly, we were flooded with images of Billy. We saw him arguing with Mr. Davies. We saw him being dragged into the principal's office. And then we saw nothing. We knew then that Mr. Davies had something to do with Billy's disappearance. But what? And where was Billy now? We confronted Mr. Harris. He finally broke down and told us the truth. Mr. Davies had been running an illegal gambling ring out of the school. Billy had found out and threatened to expose him. So Mr. Davies had killed him. "He buried Billy in the boiler room," Mr. Harris whispered. "He thought no one would ever find him." We were horrified. We had to tell someone. But as we turned to leave, the door slammed shut. We were locked in. We rattled the doorknob. It wouldn't budge. We were trapped. Suddenly the lights went out. We were plunged into darkness. We heard a cold, raspy voice. "You've found out too much," it hissed. "Now you'll join me forever." We spun around. Standing in the doorway was a shadowy figure. It was Billy, and he wasn't happy. To be continued.